Good morning, second period. We are in week 4, day 3, and it is April 22nd. Your first task for today is to log on to Grammaropolis and complete the objects activities. Please remember that you need to get an 80% or above to earn the credit, and that credit is 5 points. You are doing such a great job with Grammaropolis. I like that you're going back, you're redoing if you didn't quite meet that 80% mark. Some of you are really doing well with the different activities. So kudos to you. Nice job. Keep up the good work. Today we are going to start reading workshops. So before we're back into Romeo and Juliet, and before we left for the school year, we had done a deep study of character. Now we're going to be doing a social issues unit of study. This is traditionally meant to be a book club unit of study, but we are going to adapt it a little bit and just read one novel together just because of our situation right now. So we are going to be thinking about social issues. Yesterday, you completed a journal entry that dealt with relationships, and it kind of made you think about good relationships, bad relationships, and you gave me your insight on those. I really appreciated your responses. Some of you gave me some really nice insight, so I appreciate that. But when we think about social issues, it's all about relationships. So it's not so much the character traits, those drive those types of relationships, but it's the relationships between characters. So that is really going to be our focus for this unit of study. So keep that in mind as we get started here. So we are going to, for start session 1, it is a read aloud. We will be reading for trouble and discerning relationship issues. So we are going to try and figure out those relationship issues and see what those dynamics are all about. Okay, so let's get started. Readers, a famous French philosopher, Jean-Paul Sartre, once wrote, "Hell is other people." Now that's pretty negative, but even if you're not a people hater, you have to admit, at times, social life can be pretty painful. Think about it for a minute about how being with others can create problems. Wow, that was intense. I thought about betrayal, tales of siblings and parents not understanding, tales of bullying. It seems there's a lot of examples of how the social world can be a source of trouble. This unit, we're going to read a novel, Searching for That Trouble. Why look for trouble? For one thing, it's interesting. But on a deeper level, the trouble that comes from living with other people is something we all need to deal with and try to overcome. Figuring out how to handle ourselves in our social worlds. That's hard work, but reading literature can help. Another great philosopher, an American named Richard Rorty, said the most important question we can ask is, how can I live a good life, a moral life? He said that the best way to figure that out is to meet as many people as possible, so that you see a lot of options and can imagine many ways of living. He also said that the best way to meet a lot of people quickly is to read a lot of books. So in this unit, we're going to read a book together and talk about the ways the characters cause problems for each other. Another word for problems that are complicated is issues. We'll first think about the issues in our characters' personal relationships, and then think about how groups of people cause problems for other groups, which then leads to larger social issues in the world. We'll do this as a way to think, how can I live a good life? Knowing that I have to live it with other people. By the end of this, you will be able to make reading recommendations for yourself and for others. You can create text sets that will really help people think through some issues and learn from doing so. I think you'll also be more aware of issues in our world and ready to stand beside people who are being treated unfairly. Today, we're going to read the first part of the story called My Side of the Story from the same collection as the story Popularity. This time, it's about a fight Will gets into with his brother. Kind of a classic conflict, right? And we're going to practice reading it in a new way. Instead of focusing mostly on Will, right from the start, we're going to focus on his relationships. You're used to reading to find trouble and stopping at those parts to think about the main character. Today, as soon as we spot trouble, we'll stop and think about relationships between characters instead of just the characters themselves. Paying attention to details in the story will help us as we do this. We'll ask, what do we think about this relationship from the details the author is giving us so far? You'll have a chance to think about this work. When we're reading, we'll be tempted to think about one particular character and to analyze his traits. As we read the very first scene, let's push ourselves to think, what is going on between these characters? What are the issues in this relationship? I was sitting at my desk in my bedroom practicing my signature when my brother came in and asked me if I wanted to throw the ball around or shoot baskets. No, I said, so he looked over my shoulder at my signatures, went into the bathroom for a few seconds, came out, went to his own desk, unraveled an entire roll of scotch tape, and stuck it on my head. Well, that happened fast. There's already trouble. So let's pause. Certainly, my first impulse is to say, wow, the brother is mean. But that's just naming one character's trait. Remember, we're pushing ourselves to think about the relationship, not the character traits. Well, for one thing, it seems like they have trouble agreeing on what kinds of things they can do together. I'm wondering, though, why the brother who wants to shoot baskets does something so extreme. Are you wondering the same? Let's read on. I'm sure there's more to this relationship than what we know so far. Let's hold on to our idea that one issue in their relationship is that they have trouble agreeing on activities. But let's also try to figure out what's really going on. Just like we can find some layers of traits when thinking about a character, we can find many layers of issues when thinking about a relationship. Naturally, I was outraged. Why did you do that for? I asked. It was a stupid question because I knew very well why he had done it. He had done it for the same reason he had stuffed me into the laundry hamper and tied me to a chair with my best ties. He had done it because he was 14 and had the great good fortune to be blessed with a little brother he could be devil at will. Try to get it off, he said. This I attempted to do, but he had rubbed the scotch tape so hard into my scalp that it had become part of my head. Let me try, he said. So he tried, and I yelled as he stopped. Then he gently pulled a piece of the scotch tape off the side of my head, along with 6 or 7 of my temple hairs. New details. What new ideas are you getting about this relationship? What are you wondering? Think about that. Point out which details particularly struck you. I thought about ideas about this relationship. Many noticed that this relationship seems to be pretty conflicted so far. These brothers don't seem to get along very well. Some said the older brother isn't treating the younger one well, and there's nothing the younger one can do about it. Others thought that the older brother is being a typical prankster, and the narrator should speak up so this doesn't keep happening. One piece of feedback: be tentative in your thinking about the characters. Especially resist the temptation to be too rigidly judgmental. People usually aren't black and white, all good or all bad. Also, when you are just starting a story, you don't yet know all sides of the story. Practice saying, it seems that, or it might be, so you know you might change your mind, as in, it seems like the older brother has all the power. Or frame your thoughts as questions, as in, why might Will let this keep happening? Let's read on a bit. We have some initial ideas about the relationship, and we'll probably revise those ideas now. That's how it usually goes when you read, right? Things start happening, and we can test out early theories, or we'll get more background information. The important thing is that we read on, expecting to revise our first ideas about this relationship. Be ready to think about details that shift your thinking, even if your ideas only shift slightly. Even at the age of 9, I knew that I had been mightily wronged. Even at 9, I knew that this violated every code of justice and fair play that I had ever been taught. And so, my heart full of righteous rage and indignation, I leaped out of my chair past my brother in search of justice. In those days, Justice looked a great deal like my mother. It had lovely brown hair, a warm, enchanting smile, and a soft, understanding voice. It was comforting to know that in a matter of seconds, my mother would hear the evidence, weigh the evidence, and punish my brother. Generally, things were murkier. Generally, I did something by accident, then my brother did something back, and I did something back, and on until it was impossible to tell who was at fault. But this was the case of a lifetime. And the best part of all was that the evidence was stuck on my head. When I reached my mother's room, I saw that the door was closed. For a moment, I hesitated, wondering if she was sleeping, but I was so sure of my case, so convinced I had the general righteousness of my mission that I threw open the door and burst into the room, screaming, "Mom, Mom, skip put!" And then I realized that I was talking to my father, not my mother. Interesting. Some new characters are now in the mix, the mother and the father. When a story introduces new characters, it's important to pause and consider the relationships that these new characters may have with each other and with the characters we already know. Before talking to your partner or thinking about it, take a second to think about your ideas. Ask yourself, am I remembering that relationships go two ways? If I have thought about how the younger brother feels, have I also tried to understand how the older brother's perspective? So we have Will and Skip, Will and Dad, Skip and Dad, Will and Mom, Skip and Mom and Dad. Have I given even a thought to the parents' perspectives? Try to enlarge your thinking by taking into account more sides of the story. Also, check your new thinking references specific text details. If it doesn't take a sec to revise your thinking, again, I left time for thinking before saying with great urgency, turn and talk. So think about it. Remember that you can be specific about what details have shifted the interpretation. You can think about both boys, across the boys and the mother. You can also name some thoughts, talk about how they confirm or slightly change what you were thinking before. This work this was important work. By focusing from the start on a relationship and the issues between characters, you've been able to get closer to the heart of this story quickly. Already, you are saying that the brothers' relationship feels very competitive, that their pattern of fighting and telling on each other doesn't seem to help solve their issues. And we are super curious about how the dad will fit into all of this. We'll catch up in a few days and finish this story. Remember the moves we made today, okay? So, readers look for issues in characters' relationships. You know from studying characters that details matter, but now you can think about how details give a window into issues between characters. In addition to what's going on for each character, I think this is going to feel interesting as you begin your book today. So, the first teaching point is stop when you notice trouble in a scene to ask, what's happening between characters here? And teaching point number 2 is as you read on, expect your initial ideas to shift. With more of the story, the question becomes what's really happening between these characters. So keep those teaching points in mind as you do your first 2 chapters here of reading. So as you begin the Serpent King, pay particular attention to the characters' relationships. List as many relationships as you can, just like we noted for our read aloud today. Also note the issues you see surfacing between the characters and mark the pages where you saw them. This book is set up really nicely. It shows you each character's point of view. So it's going to start out with the character of Dill. You're going to see Lydia. You're going to see Travis. So you're going to see what those characters are thinking right away. So I hope you really get into this book and you like it. This was a book that I could not put down. I bawled my eyes out at the end, but it is definitely relatable to you guys, and I think that all of you will find something in it that you really like, and you can identify with these kids. So your task for today is Grammaropolis objects. Okay, make sure you get that completed. You are then going to read chapters 1 and 2 of The Serpent King, and they are on Google Classroom. They're a PDF. You just have to go to Classroom. They're already linked there for you as a material, so they're right there for you. Then you're going to complete a reading reflection, and so that is already assigned on Google Classroom. You just click on it. It's a docs. You're going to just type right there and then submit that so that I can see it. Okay. I hope you have a wonderful day. Enjoy yourselves. I hope you really get into The Serpent King. I'm excited for you to read it and to hear your thoughts about it. Have a great day.